And we're sharing a microphone. Okay, great.
You crazy people, you came to see something you saw already.
Wow, this is such an honor. I mean, it's amazing to be on stage with you. I feel like we all kind of grew up with you from the Taxi reruns, and for me through these life-shaping movies like Ordinary People and Without a Trace, Running on Empty. And you're so prolific. It's amazing to see that you're still, I think you made 3 movies in 2022 alone. And it just feels like rarely a year passes where we don't have a Judd Hirsch film, and that you're always in these kind of comforting roles.
Well, it took me to be 104.
You're not even 90.
Oh, my mother gave me the wrong birth date, so.
Oh, well.
So I felt I was older.
Well, that's why you look so young.
Yeah, I checked it, and she didn't know how to spell my name when I was in school.
Which one?
Judd. She gave me the name. She never told me what it meant or where it came from or what it was. You know, usually it's about somebody else's, right?
Someone who died.
Dead person. So I said, I went to school and I'd write my name on the paper, you know, on a test or something like that. And I wrote Judd, and the teacher would cross off one of my D's because my mother had written notes to school with only one D. So I thought, I can't go through life not knowing how to spell my own name. So I asked my mother, I said, how do you spell my name? And she said, why, isn't it just Judd? I said, I don't think so. But they believe it. So she said, let me look up your birth certificate. And on the birth certificate, it says Judd. And I said, so, there, you named me. She said, yeah, I don't know why.
Did you ever find out?
I have a mother like that.
Did you ever find out if you were named after some dead person or where she got the idea for this name?
No, but I found out the name, in Jewish, there are many, many names for the word Jew. And that's one of them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's Judadiah and every one of those that sound like that is, in general, like the Jewish state, like it means Jew.
So your name is Judd Hirsch.
Right.
So nobody should be confused about who you are or
Yeah.
where you come from.
And the silly people who make movies believe that, right? So they put me in all these parts where I was Jewish.
No, we're going to talk about it. I want to start by talking about that amazing scene from The Fablemans, which I don't know if it actually set a record, but if not, it must have been close for the shortest amount of time on film, I think less than 10 minutes that you earned an Oscar nomination for. And it seems like a role that was written for you in a way, although I know it comes also from real life. But how did it come to you? How did you figure out how to be Uncle Boris? It
was really the artist part I ever played, and the artist reasoned to be chosen because Steven Spielberg, I don't know whether it was him or somebody else that thought of me for the part, but I simply got a call one day, and he's on Zoom, and I said, who? And they said, SS.
That's a little scary for Judd Hirsch.
Who does he want to speak to? JH. All right. I opened the Zoom, and it's him, and I said, oh, yes, wait a minute. I said, I met you 50 years ago in an office here in New York, and the Universal had a casting service here in New York. And I had gone up, for some strange reason, they found me somewhere in the street and said, would you like to read for this thing? It was a television movie called The Law. It was very big, 2.5-hour movie. Now, I don't know how they found me because I didn't know who they were either. So I said, yeah, I think I might be able to play that part. She said, let me introduce you to people in the office. So she walks me around in the office and says, so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And there's this little guy sitting behind a desk with a script on the desk that says Jaws. And she said, and this is Mr. Spielberg, and So she said, he's gonna be very big. Hadn't done the movie yet, right? Which was a massive disaster to do, and a tremendous success. So when I talked to him, I said, we met 50 years ago in that office. And I said, you were only about 23. He said, right. And I said, and you were doing Jaws. And he said, right. And it took you 50 years to cast me in your movie? In a way, he said, never again, we'll see each other. No, he's full of crap. Well, so that's how I met. But the part actually was written with the screenwriter that he wrote the movie with, because he collaborated for the first time on a movie because it's his life. And Tony Kushner, who's a very famous movie playwright and screenwriter, wrote a number of his movies as well. He wrote that. He wrote that part. Almost out of context.
Right, the scene really stands out in the movie as though it's its own thing.
Yeah, and in effect, I said, "Who is this guy? This guy that I'm playing?" Yeah. And he said, "Just what I wrote." And I said, "Yeah, but I said, is everything that I say true? In other words, the people's names." In the beginning, I'm talking about my career in the circus and movies and whatnot. I'm naming all these names. He said, all of them are true. So. This means that I didn't know what the hell I was talking about when I did the part. Because they never told me. I mean, why, where, what, why, if I came from the circus and what I was going to do with that kid, which I almost killed him, to make him become a director. So the only thing he told me when we met, Stephen, I said, so what's the part? He said, well, there's this guy. And I said, well, who is he? He said, he's the one that made me become a director. Though he remembered that scene in his life.
Kind of an important guy.
His old uncle came and told him, you will be, or you'll, So I thought, okay, all right. So now, I don't know how to play that in context with to make him become a director. So they know about it, I don't know. I'm telling you, I was kind of like in a room with a kid. I said, I hope I know what I'm talking about, but let's see what happens. And that's the way it came out. Right?
And they couldn't afford a costume for you? They just said, do it with the underwear?
Exactly. No, they didn't even propose one.
You have so many characters with...
I didn't win for the costume, though. I wasn't even nominated for the costume.
Yeah.
And I didn't win for the performance either, if you remember.
Well, I wasn't mentioning that.
It took 41 years for them to renominate me.
There's
the first
time.
one was 41 years before. Right. So I lived sort of like a worthless career between one and the other.
I mean, you won the Emmys and the Obie, and there's some other things.
Yeah.
That you played a lot of. That's one of many characters you played with very strong accents. How do you figure out exactly which accent is Boris and which is Mordecai? And
well, I asked him. He said, in effect, and the way it was written, the man is obviously, very accented. Comes from like Ukraine, I believe he came from. And I said, when this uncle of yours did visit you, what did he sound like? And this is what Stephen said. We never understood a word he said.
Oh, so if you'd done a heavier accent, you would have won the award.
That's right. That's right.
All right, switching gears a bit to Taxi. And I'm interested in... Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
So before I saw your clip reel, my husband and I were talking about this interview, and he was talking about his favorite scene from Taxi, which is the driver's test scene, the very famous driver's test scene. I'm interested in why you picked this one for this event.
I believe, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, when every year when a show is nominated for an Emmy, they choose one episode. Mm-hmm. The producer chooses one episode to be submitted for that Emmy, and I believe that was one. also, I thought it was the most, I don't know, telling about the character, right? About the character. Like, who is he? Well, you know, he's the only cab driver in the place. Everybody has dreams, and he's kind of like the guy who'd been there for so long, it didn't make any difference. He'll never get out, blah, blah, blah. So he's always being tested in life to, in a way, live, right? More than a taxi driver. And this one time, he goes on a ski trip, meets a girl with beautiful blue eyes, and she dares him to go down a ski slope, and he flies through the air and remembers it so well that he told that story.
Right.
And then what you didn't see, of course, was, what does that make you feel? It makes me feel like you gotta do what you never thought you could do. So I get up, I play the piano in the bar,
right.
And then I tell Tony that, I said, what about boxing? Isn't that something that you'd be afraid to do? He said, yeah. I said, teach me to box. So we have this whole scene where he teaches me to box. I get knocked out.
Right.
And I get up saying, I was knocked out. So it was so heroic.
What's the real life version of that for Judd Hirsch? Did you jump out of a plane? Have you done it?
I wouldn't dare. No. No, it's, I think that anything I tried, I didn't expect to get. I didn't expect, as I said, they found me on the street somewhere, and all of a sudden I'm in a movie and television. I never even been to California, and that's when I met Stephen. That place.
Right.
That movie that we're talking about was called The Law, and I was just shunted out to California and starred in the movie, and the movie won the Emmy. And I don't think anybody remembers. It was a 2.5-hour movie, so at that time they made that kind of thing on television.
Right.
And so it's like you can't help getting launched after that, right? You know what I mean?
So one of the things I didn't know about you till I was preparing for this interview, and maybe some of the audience don't know, is that you majored in physics. You were in the Army and worked as an engineer before you got started in acting. You were in your late 20s when you got started. So I'm wondering both how that happened, that you went from being an engineer to being an actor, and also whether you use your physics degree and engineering ever.
I'm using my physics degree right now.
Yeah?
Yeah. Talking to you and trying to impress these people, I'm using my physics degree in engineering, and I don't joke about it. I really wanted to be a mechanical engineer. I was not only was it fascinating, but I was so good in math and so good in science that by the time I got to college, it was like, this is really all I can do, right? And because we were so poor, I went to City College and it was free. No, really, it's a great school. I mean, some of the alumni from City College over a period of years, I think it's 175 years, a very old college, originally made free for people in New York who couldn't afford to go to college. That's what its reason was. And I went there because I couldn't go anywhere else. We didn't have 14 cents. So I went through and I said, wow, you can't walk out on something like this. You'll never be able to get it anywhere else,
Right.
And then I didn't think that I would become an engineer, so I quit and then went to another subject. And
Which was acting?
I didn't know what the hell I was doing. A lot of kids didn't know what they were doing. Couldn't see myself, working for somebody else or something like that. And then I went and studied teaching, whatever. And no, I couldn't do that either. And then I read a poem in college. It was like a 1-credit course. I read a poem, and this poem was so great, I thought, if I could do that.
Write poetry.
And to a public, if I could express that poem, that to me was the reason to become somebody who could express themselves through a script or, and present it, right? So that was just an idea.
I'm just imagining your parents who are like, send you to City College to become an engineer, and you're like, I'd like to read poetry.
my parents didn't know what the hell I was talking about most of the time. So then I said, no, I'm going to, because I loved houses. So I left, went to Cooper Union. You know what Cooper Union is in Manhattan? Yeah, it's another free school at the time for art and architecture. And it's a great school for both. So I was an art student and an architecture student. And didn't last, maybe about a year or so. And then I left, and then I thought, I have no idea what I've just done. It's like, that in the background of you, you want to do something. And then I'm telling you, this all came true when I came to the Catskills, when I finally did my first show in Woodstock, actually. It was the first play I did. And then trickled down because I thought this was such a great place, And then I said, I just want some place that I could just open the door, close the door, come in on any one day off from anything, and just know I'm in the mountains by myself.
And that's when you bought the cabin?
That's when I bought a cabin. It was like a one-roomer. And I built the whole rest of it myself. And I said, you see, I didn't build anything before that. I got a little book that said, How to Build a Cabin. I'm not kidding.
So you did use your engineering degree.
Yeah. And my $14, go out and buy a board, come back, nail it up. So I was more fascinated with that than I was with anything else. So the acting was just sort of giving me back my dream.
That's great.
You know what I mean? I was a late comer.
That's great.
To everything.
Yeah. So, you've played a lot of Jewish characters.
Yeah.
And a lot of different kinds of Jewish characters. We saw a bunch of them just now. We got Uncle Boris, who's...
Well, there's one character that I didn't want necessarily to be Jewish because I didn't think it was like a good idea for that to be part of the show, and the show was called Taxi. So the first script that we got, on the first day that we read, the character's name was Alex Taylor. And I was just sitting there by myself thinking of anything I could do to change that name. And I didn't know everybody, and nor the producers or the director. And they said, okay, so let's read this. And I said, just a moment, please. I don't think I could play Taylor. He looked at me as if to say, what do you mean? I said, I don't think I could play a guy by the name of Taylor. It just doesn't fit. I knew what I was talking about. I knew they wanted him to be maybe Jewish, but that's, in television, you gotta understand, it isn't the same. Not the same, they don't hit you on the head with it. So I said, no. I cannot play that part. I cannot play that name. Okay, so what do you want to play? So I had to think up something. In about 5 minutes, I thought of the funniest kid that I met in junior high school, who I have no idea where he is or who he is or even if he's alive at that time. And all I knew is his name was Stanley Rieger. And if you're in the audience, Stanley, I'd love to say hello. Because I lost track of this kid when I was 14 years old.
When we do This Is Your Life, Judd Hirsch, he'll come out on stage.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, I like that name. I like that name. It's more German than anything. So I just said, Rieger.
And they're like, okay.
And can you imagine history being made from such an ass? Man, it's like nothing, right? Like I picked my nose and I said, Picky. You know what I mean?
Did you know Taxi was gonna be Taxi? I mean...
Well, I was kind of sitting around at home after doing some stuff on television, but it wasn't. And my agent said, they want you to do this thing. And I said, what? And they gave me, I said, what? Where? What? I said, does it have a script? Yeah. Well, send it. I'll read it. Of course, I read the script and I went, oh, shoot. I didn't really want to be in television. I really wanted not to be in television. I mean, I did. That wasn't my...
You wanted to do movies?
I'm a stage actor. So I thought, and I have a son, and I wanted to take him on, that time, I wanted to take him on the biggest trip of his life. He was getting to be like 9 or something like that. I wanted to go to Europe. So I said, look, I really don't want to do it. but I think if I did, I'm going to get a little older. It looked a little too good, you know. Little did I know, I thought it was going to be a 3-year show. It turned out to be a 5-year show, but it really should have been longer.
I was surprised when I looked
Should've
back
been a
and saw
10-year.
that. I was like, it was on much longer than that.
Yeah. At the time,
seasons were longer. And...
Yeah, shows didn't last that long at that time. So I said, in effect, yeah, okay, make them an offer they can't accept. He said, what? I said, just do that. This is the only way I can get out of doing something like this, right? And he calls me back and says, okay, they accepted that. And that was it.
Did you ever get to Europe with your kid?
No.
Oh.
No.
That's too bad.
No. Not even now do I get to Europe.
How do you think would Taxi work in today's world, in the streaming world? Would it be a hit today, or how would it have to be different? Or
no, I think it's when you consider what is classic in anything, in plays, television, movies, music, there is an element of something that clicks in the minds and feelings of people all over, and in the lives of people all over. Like they say, I feel something through that.
Yeah.
I went through something. Every time I play a part, someone comes up and says, "That's my grandfather." You know, or, my mother was like that. Or, so the reminder of how far it goes into somebody's experience out there is really the key. You know, I think, to classics, and of course the writers are really the people that made it all happen. You know. And there's a little luck involved, you know, like you're on with a whole bunch of other shows.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a fair question. It might be like asking who your favorite kid is, but is that your favorite role? Do you have a favorite role?
I'm so old, I must have at least 5.
Okay.
But I can't figure them out, you know what I mean? Because when I hear favorite, I go like this, I'd rather be on the stage here doing a play than anything else, right? So I go back to what I'd done on the stage, which was quite a few. And those experiences are individual, you know what I mean? I could say I had the greatest time doing a play that you never heard of, nor would you even want to know why I did, because it was so damn funny. And I just lived on that, you know what I mean? But
you're doing a play now, right? Or you just finished a play?
No.
No? Sorry.
No.
Got my notes mixed up. No. All right, sorry, that's the other guy I'm interviewing.
You could shock me. I thought maybe you're right.
I
don't know.
Let me get back to this question about Jewish characters. So you played a lot of Jews, a lot of different kinds of Jews.
Yeah.
And I want to ask, first of all, how is it different for you to play Jewish characters versus non-Jewish characters? Is one easier? Do you prefer one?
No, I never think of them that way. All I can think of is how kind of like other they are, not traditional in any way, you know. Like in Independence Day, the reason I liked the idea that this guy was Jewish, as I said, and by the way, I changed my name in that one also. That the character's name was Moshe.
Oh, too Jewish.
His first name was Moshe. And if you said that to me in any part, I would have to say, stuff it, I'm not playing Moshe. And that's real. I mean, and I was old enough to play the father of a 44-year-old guy. So I thought, okay, I mean, why would I want to even think about being, you know, restricted to a name that's sort of like saying, yeah, that's who he is.
Right.
Guys like him are called Moshe, you know what I mean? So they said, no, there were no guys like me. This is a one and only. When I played the part, I'm much younger than the part was, okay?
Right.
And also much feistier. The only thing I wanted them to know was this guy was, you didn't know what he was going to do next because he was so strong. And that's how I was going to make my mark. So I said, so I can't play Moshe. And then the writer said, well, then why? And I told him that. He said, well, who would you play? And as I said, in 5 minutes, I thought, the strongest man I ever could think of. Let me think. The strongest man I could have, Julius Caesar.
Okay.
So I said, Julius.
And he said, sure.
He said, I love it. This is my grandfather's, something like that. You know. I'm lucky.
You know, you're legitimately old now. You're going to be 90 years old. And I have to say, you seem much younger than your numbers.
Yeah,
But-
I was going to invite everybody to my 90th birthday next year.
Oh,
Yay.
great. We'll send
Right here. Right here.
We'll give you the email addresses of everybody.
Okay.
But as you just mentioned, I feel like in most of your career, you've played older than you are. You're always playing the wise old man, the wisdom, lived experience. You were born, you have an old soul? What is that about?
I don't know. The first time I ever tried to get cast in anything, it was actually here in Woodstock. No, sorry. It was in New York. Just before I went to Woodstock to play my first part, they were doing a play written by an Irishman. I can't remember the name of the play, but it was written that the character is 29 years old, blah, blah, blah. So when I auditioned for it, the guy said, well, you're kind of like, yeah, but you're a little bit young for the part. I went, what? He said, you're obviously too young for the part. I said, I'm 29 years old. I said, I think we offered the part to somebody else. Some other 29-year-old. Yeah, that's the first time anybody ever told me that. No, I couldn't figure out how old I was at all in the mind of anybody else. I was always younger, you know what I mean? And so then I got to play a part called I'm Not Rappaport, if you remember that one. And that I think it's a classic beauty by my friend Herb Gardner. And Herbie and I, we kind of know about that. He writes like that, and we used to kid around that way about these characters. So he said, play that one. And I said, whoa, this guy's 81. 81. But we both knew that if I wanted to, I could play 81. So, it was, okay, we didn't even think about makeup or anything like that. And we just started rehearsing, right? And he said, we started reading to other groups. And he said, who can we use for the black guy? And I said, oh, my good old friend, Cleavon Little. And I thought, no, Cleveland's not going to be very good. I don't know whether he could play 81. So he has him. And all of a sudden he goes, I love the idea of this character. I said, you got to understand, I don't know him as a character actor. He's beautiful. He's 5 years younger than me, and I was 50. All right, I was 50 when I played the part, and he was 45.
Wow.
Now we're going to play two 81-year-old men sitting on a bench, right? And then we made up. It was okay. But the depth of what he wrote for these two characters, you could not want to not jump into that guy and that experience, right? And the rest is kind of like, can you make him believe it, all right? On opening night, my mother is sitting in the theater with the author's mother. They were both about 4'9". When they got off their chairs, they went downward. So they hear the people talking in the back in the intermission, and some lady says to her, says, Judd Hirsch looks so old. And the other woman says, he is. I don't know what she'd seen in my life, and so I said, we made it.
Yeah,
and from then on, we did 1,000 performances of that show.
Wow.
1,000. Yeah.
So you were a little older when you finished.
Yeah. That's why I love that one. It was off Broadway, a tour, and then we came back and played it on Broadway until we couldn't do it anymore. Until we just said we got to stop.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
So back to the Jewish questions. No, I was thinking.
That was your Jewish question.
I was thinking about this Jewish character question because I don't know if you followed this, but in the last few weeks, a lot of people are going crazy over this new show, Nobody Wants This, about the hot rabbi who's dating a non-Jew, and nobody supposedly wants this. And there's a lot of debate online and everywhere about the ancillary characters, the other Jewish characters, his parents, his sister-in-law, and are they stereotyped? Are they anti-Semitic characters? And they're kind of cartoonish. They're not. Is it good for the Jews or bad for the Jews? You have a hot rabbi, but then you have these stereotypes, and I wonder, how you look at that. You've played so many different kinds of Jews. Some of them a little cartoonish. We saw a couple clips of some, I Mordecai is filled with stereotyped characters.
Well, that's because that's who the guy is.
That's who the guy is, right?
No, that's him. That's him.
What's your take on like the nobody wants this controversy? If you have one.
No, it's just that I just wish that it wouldn't be looked at that way. If the part is something that's so good, it wouldn't matter whether it's Jewish or not. And that's the way I kept going. I said, I mean, okay, so that's the way you wrote it, and it is worthwhile being that. I mean, even in Independence Day, the weirdest thing about Independence Day is that they wrote it that way, that I was this Jewish father of this guy. Now, the star of the play, of the movie is my son,
right,
not me. And when the movie premiered in America, it was the largest selling movie ever in the history of, and it was mainly because it was sold overseas, abroad. So it went to all the countries you could possibly think of, except the Arabic. They would not show the movie because I was the guy, because my son got drunk and fell on the floor, and I said the magic word of, I said, you're going to catch cold, and made him think of putting a cold into the system and knock the guys out of the sky, right? So that was a solution to the world that we said, this Jew saved the world.
Yeah, they didn't like that.
No. I couldn't believe it.
So here we are.
But we made a lot of money anyway. We didn't need Saudi Arabia. But that was their choice. It wasn't. I never even knew there was a choice to be made. Those things you see. Guys, you got to go back in the history of this whole thing, and it's nothing like the history of any particular people in the world. So there isn't a way that you can't compare it. You can't compare the existence of that particular group to any other, right? We here in America, we live in America. There were no Americans before us. There were no Americans. We are all Americans because we came from someplace else. There's no country like that, right? I mean, the French were always French. The Germans are always Germans. They all were there for hundreds of years and were always that way. And their little borderlines told you who they were. Not here. Not here. But if you take a look at the Jewish experience, I mean, you got to go back to a time when a group was actually taken out of their entire place and shoved in every place in the world you could think of, and then told that they could go back, and then they were shoved out again, and then murdered, and then there is no experience like that. I'm not saying this because I'm Jewish. I'm only saying this because you can't understand it that way. This idea of anti-Semitism to me is like it's ignorance about a history. That's how it happens.
I think we have 2 minutes, so I'm going to ask you one more question.
Sure.
I think maybe 2. Here we are at the Borscht Belt Festival. I know you said you moved up to the Catskills really to have a little cabin in the woods, but I'm wondering how the Borscht Belt gestalt, how the tradition of Jewish humor and Jewish performance that this place embodies, but that also has many other manifestations, how did that shape you and your career at all?
I wanted to be Sid Caesar. No, I mean it. I wanted to be
Julius Sid,
I even thought I looked like him. At the time, I thought I was the greatest television comedy show, and because it was, he never did that corny thing about being great. A lot of them came out, it's like Milton Berle came out and did his shtick to the audience. This guy was an actor. So when I was thinking about it, and I was a kid, but I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking, that is what actors should do if they're comedians or they're in comedy. Just do it. Do the story, be innocent, and make that. So situation comedy is because the situation is funny, not because we're doing jokes, not because we're being, there's no funny people in situation comedy. If it's good, I mean, on Cheers, who's funny? Nobody. They're just playing a character. right? So it sort of separates itself from those that thought they could become successful by doing comic shows, all right? And I don't know what the hell I'm talking about anymore, but it's... You get to my age and you start talking, you don't know what you're talking about.
What shows do you watch? What shows are you watching now? What do you like on any platform?
No, I don't. I didn't even watch my own show. I never watch television. Well, now because we're involved in this tremendous, time, and we're running out from the last 12 some odd years of the concern about our lives, a pandemic included, right? We just have to recognize that we might not have thought we were turning the page on anything. It turned, and it's right. I mean, this life, and I've lived along. This is not the same one as last year. It's not. I mean, this is a choice, and also it's not what I can recognize. When we went through the pandemic, I thought, what's going to happen afterwards? It's almost like saying the hurricane comes, destroys your house, takes away your neighborhood, and you go like this. What now? Okay, rebuild? You know what I mean? But you can't live it again. You can't say, I'll do the same thing I did last time.
Which brings me to my last question, which is you're going to be 90 years old next year.
Yeah.
Some people might consider retirement. You don't seem to be. How does somebody decide, after all you've done, all you've accomplished, that, oh yeah, I want to do that movie now, I want to do that play, I want to do that. Why do you keep working?
Well, it's a good question, really good question. I mean, I don't ask myself this question because it doesn't occur to me. It's like saying, why do you get up every day? Well, why not? Why not? But it's not why would you retire? It's more like, why should you? You know what I mean? It's like, I frankly would not know what the hell to do with myself. I mean, I wouldn't know who to talk to. And if I didn't know who to talk to, I'd probably go to sleep. And I don't think that's the answer to anything.
Well, we are so
don't
glad
think of it.
that
If you're thinking about retiring, don't retire.
We are so glad that you talked to us today. What a treat. It's amazing. And Jodi, we're going to...
Oh, I thought you said somebody wanted...
Are we going to have questions from the audience?
No?
No? We don't have time?
We don't have time? If you...
So my answer quickly to all the questions you would have asked is, of course, why not, and yes.
Yeah.